I was looking today on trailers for my Evil Within 2 review, and I come to realize that I think I never seen trailers for this video game before, and I see that as a good thing because for me I came into the second game pretty blind. I didn't know exactly what to expect from the sequel to the 2014 survival horror video game. And all that I knew about the second game was the reviews that I saw back in 2017. They were mostly favorable, and a lot of reviewers pointed out the open world treatment that the game received, which I'm gonna also talk about a little. But also, what also interested me about when I saw the video game back in 2017 when it was still fresh, a thing that really piqued my interest for this video game was that it was first person, that they implemented that mod for it, for you can play it also in first person, which from what I understand there was like a chapter in the video game where the game switched to a first person POV, and many people inserted some codes into the game and made it first person the whole game, and that's why the developers made it something permanent for the game, the first person perspective. And I want to say that for my first playthrough of this game, I played it almost closely to 100% only in first person perspective, which in my opinion helped a lot. So although there are some issues, cause I want to do some comparisons with the first one and the second one. So the first one was more like Resident Evil 4 gameplay. This one, because it's more first person, it kind of does its own thing from some points of view, because you have the gameplay from the previous one that is implemented in a first person perspective, and in my opinion it helps a lot with the immersion. It has some little issues, but also but also I'd like to say that it helped a lot with the immersion in the game, the first person perspective. While the first game was more like survival, and in some points of view you could say that it took some elements from Outlast, and this game kind of got away from the Outlast influences, which I kind of liked. That I more preferred the option that the game gave you. If you wanted to be more action, you can be more action, and if you want to be more stealth, you can be more stealth. And I choose to be more stealthy in the video game, because at the start of the game you didn't have that many resources. But sometimes the stealth mechanics had some issues for me. I mean, those prompts for attacking the enemy, there were I don't know if for other people it's happened this, but some of the enemies were like very twitchy and kind of hindered you in stealth killing them, because they kind of turned all the way around. They weren't stationary. And I understand this. It's an important thing for a stealthy game, that you have to be synchronized, that you have to find that sweet spot when to kill an enemy. but sometimes I think the game forced you to start just shooting on the enemies. The stealth wasn't that well implemented. The engine looks amazing. Like if people who have played this game at the starting of the video game, there's a cinematic with the main character, the returning main character from the previous game, Sebastian Castellano, who is with his family, and I was very impressed. I don't think I have been impressed by graphics for some time, but the way they rendered the models for his daughter and for his wife, I was pretty floored when I saw them. So this game looks amazing. It hasn't aged that much. Well, it's a 3-year-old video game. Although I had some engine issues because I have like a dual screen system. I have a gaming laptop which is connected to another monitor, and there were some issues that got ported from the other engine. The same issues. If people have a dual system, a dual monitor system, they know what I'm talking about. Um, about the plot, it's that's also a thing that I found a little interesting. They kind of continue the story from the previous game, just from that you have Sebastian Castellano, you have Julie Kidman, but they don't really continue the story from the previous one. They just use some of the themes that they presented in the first one, and now they have like a sequel to a side story that you had in the previous game, which from some points of view I was kind of disappointed. I wanted kind of a continuation of the main plot line from the other video game. At the same time, I liked the twist that the sequel had. Like in the first one, you had to destroy. This is mild spoilerish, but I think people, if they played the first one, they kind of know what the game is about. So in the second one, you had to destroy the core, Ruvik, and now in the second one, you have to save the core from the virtual simulation, which is your daughter, who was thought to have died in snippets that you found in articles that you found in the first video game. I also liked that this game went a little deeper with its story. It kind of it kind of developed better its characters. Like Sebastian was better developed in this video game. Not that much, but he was better developed in this one than the previous one. Well, it is a more personal story for him, but also the characters, in my opinion, felt more human in the cutscenes. I kind of liked his interactions with Sebastian and Kidman and Lily and his wife. They felt more human, and I would say that the soundtrack was pretty much as at the same level as the previous game, but near the end I liked the original soundtrack. You had some pieces there near the ending of the game, and I think people that have played or will play this video game will know what I talk about. Now, about the survival horror part of the game, it is a lot of item managing and crafting in this video game, and I think a thing that this game did original was to make it somewhat of an open world horror, game which I don't think there exists at all or that many. I've never encountered an open world horror video game, and it's not really 100% open world, but it has like you have like this huger maps that you can do side activities and explore and find those keys that you used in the first level. It was a little funny that in this game, if you remember the nurse character from the previous game, Nurse Tatiana, it was pretty funny that they turned her huge asylum that you had in the previous game in just like a small closet. It seemed like a small closet where she was sitting on a chair, and you had that brain map where you could upgrade, and that side where with lockers. It was like, I was reduced to this. Well, that was a little funny for me, but also um I kind of liked that thing that the nurse has turned into something different than in the previous game. They explored, they developed a lot what they constructed in the first one. They developed more what they did in the first one to the second one. Like they even explained those apparitions, that those ghostly apparitions that you had in the previous one. Now you could see them with your device that looked like something from Ghostbusters. At the same time, when they removed the traps, I was like, it wasn't such a big waste for me. The game still kept its it still kept its B movie story presentation, although this one felt more like an American. From what I understand, even the director isn't Shinji Mikami anymore. It's an American guy, John Johannes. Although, from what I see, there's a second director to this video game, Yun Watanabe. Well, so. Also, these two games remind me a lot of American Gothic, like the style of an American Gothic. And this is a thing that I liked a lot about the game. There were things that didn't work for me in this open world new mechanic. It was that some places were scripted. Like for at one point, I met like I found a scripted plank. I couldn't break it until I activated the script, the scene from the game. That was a thing that kind of bothered me a little. Also, talking about the open world nature of the video game, it kind of sometimes it kind of gave me the vibe of horror dungeon crawler. Like you could go in the main story and follow it for the main story plot lines. You could also take side missions, but you could also explore different houses, and you'd find like mini side stories in those, and it felt a lot like Skyrim or Fallout for me in those parts. I don't know if people who are film buffs, but the logo, the tree logo from the Marrow, I think it was called, that tree logo reminded me a lot of the Lad Company tree. So that's a little detail for people who are fans of Blade Runner, for example. That logo appeared before Blade Runner and Once Upon a Time in America. From some points of view, sometimes I felt like the diversity in levels was kind of missing, but at the same time, the more I played it, the more I was thinking, no, it's kind of you kind of have the same maps that you had in the previous game. Maybe some are even added, or no, it's kind of the same ratio, I think, with diversity of the maps. The enemies, I think, were like pretty same-ish. Yeah, and but still the game gets a lot of high points for me for its immersion, especially in an open world environment. Kind of, you have more time to get immersed in its world and feel what's happening in around you. Also, I want to point out that I played the Steam version, and because I didn't know that much about the video game, especially from what I saw now in the trailers, they kind of give up the detail that you have not the same villain as you had in the other one. And when I played the Steam version, it gave me a card where I was like, who is this guy? And then when I played more the game, I was like, oh, okay. Also, I'd like to point out that there were still like some bosses that reminded me again of Dead Space, especially when some of the bosses caught you on caught you on your leg or on your body, and then you had to aim for a split second one of the weak spots of the enemy. The game took me like the same kind of the same time that the same length that the first one took me, like 24 hours to finish. Also, I would like to point out that this game didn't had that many extra options like model viewer that you had in the previous video game, or DLC. But for me, the DLCs from the previous one, the assignment and consequences, frustrated me a lot, and the executioner was a nice treat, but it wasn't like something very important. So maybe it's a better thing that they focused more on the main game. From what I heard, they kind of had. I heard rumors that they had a plan to make DLCs, but because the game didn't sell that well as the previous one, that's why they didn't do the DLC. But still, I was pretty satisfied with the end product. The collectibles were pretty cool, and there weren't that many from what I remember from the previous one. I liked those little toys that then you put in your office. Oh yeah, and the hub world with your office, I also liked, especially. So you didn't get the DLCs and those extra model viewer, but you got those shooting ranges that I liked a lot, and that Tetris like video game or Bejeweled video game that they implemented. So yeah, they kind of put in their extras inside the video game. All in all, I really liked this video game. From what I heard, some people are expecting a third one in the series. From the finish that I got, there were just, I think, one or two plot threads left unresolved, but still it felt like a final product for me. But I would still give, I think, the same score I gave the previous one, an 8 out of 10. Thank you for listening.